Hello, hello. Welcome to English Extras. I'm Jean, your guide to making your English sound natural and authentic. This podcast is all about helping intermediate and advanced learners move beyond textbook phrases so you can express yourself with confidence. Want to follow along with today's episode? Check out the transcript linked in the description. It's packed with key vocabulary, definitions, and example sentences, as well as links to additional resources to help you take your learning to the next level. Ready? Let's get started. Have you had this experience recently? You feel your English is pretty good. You've been learning English for a long time. You practice every day. You have classes, etc. But then you watch a movie or a YouTube video or talk to a native speaker outside of class and something weird happens. You don't understand anything. Are they even speaking English? It is English, but it's spoken so fast that you don't understand a word. I've had this experience many times, especially while learning French. I wanted to watch movies in French, and I thought, yeah, my French is good enough to understand some parts of a French movie, sure. But then I watched it. I tried watching Intouchable, and I had that experience I just described. I couldn't understand a word. I don't know about you, but I felt awful. I started feeling a lot of doubt and embarrassment. And I thought, I guess my French isn't even half as good as I thought it was. I was really discouraged. I felt pretty low for a while after that, but that's because I didn't know then, at that time, what I know now. And that's what I'm going to share with you today. Tips for learning to understand fast English. First of all, I want you to keep in mind that understanding fast-speaking native speakers is possible. It's not magic. It's not something only a few people are able to do. You can do it too. You got to where you are now by working hard and being consistent, and that's how you will get to this next goal of understanding fast English. If you have doubts, that's okay. Everyone feels doubt. Just don't dwell in it. Don't stay in it. Don't let it stop you from doing the work. Not all of these tips and techniques will work for you, but some probably will. I hope you will try them all to see what works for you. Keep doing what works. Abandon what doesn't. Either way, keep going. Let's start with tip number 1. Learn connected speech patterns. So what do I mean by connected speech patterns? Connected speech is when the borders between words blend together. Some sounds get completely deleted, or a new sound might be created. All languages do this, not just English. That's because native speakers are lazy. We always look for the easiest, fastest way to communicate. Native speakers can do this because there are patterns to how speech changes. For example, let's take the question, Did you eat yet? Did you eat yet? Saying it quickly, it will sound like, did you eat yet? It sounds like this because of commonly used patterns of connected speech. One of the patterns is when one word ends with a D sound, D, and the next word starts with a Y sound, Y. We see this in the phrase, did you? Did you? When there's a D and then a Y, the sound changes to a J sound, J. So it sounds like Jew. Another pattern is to kind of drop the final T sound at the end of eat and turn it into a glottal stop. So eat sounds like eat. So did you eat sounds like did you eat? And then yet comes at the end as normal. There are many connected speech patterns in English, but if you don't know where to start learning them, I've got you covered. I have 2 full episodes about connected speech patterns to help you get started, and I will link them in the description. When you listen to native speakers, listen carefully to how they connect their speech. What sounds do they drop? Do they make new sounds between words? Listen slowly and then listen at full speed. Copy what you hear. Let's discuss tip number 2. Focus on stressed words and keywords. English is what's called a stress-timed language, which means that there is a specific flow and rhythm to English because of where we put emphasis on a word. Also, emphasis, or in this case, stress, can change the meaning of a word, but that's a topic for another day. For this tip, we're talking about focusing on the words in a sentence that receive stress, because these are often the most important words. So, if you take a sentence like, I'm going to the store, which words are emphasized? I'm going to the store. The most important ones, which are going and store. The less emphasized words, I'm, to, and the, are less important and receive less stress. So, as you're listening, you don't need to put all of your energy toward catching and understanding every single little word. Put your energy toward catching and understanding the key words, the words that are emphasized, the words that have the most meaning in the sentence. Okay, tip number 3. Use context clues. Like I said before, you don't need to focus on every single word. Put your energy toward the most important parts of a sentence and let the context do some work for you. You can get a lot of meaning from things that aren't words, like facial expressions and body language. So don't just focus entirely on the words. Tip number 4, practice shadowing. You've probably heard this tip before because it's useful for a lot of successful language learners. Shadowing is the process of trying to copy someone's speaking style, tone, accent, or speed by listening and speaking at the same time. It's less focused on learning vocabulary or grammar. It's about sounding more like a native speaker. You can start doing this yourself with any audio. The process works like this. Listen to the audio, then repeat what you heard just like the speaker said it. Try to copy the rhythm, tone, and speed as closely as you can. In fact, you should try to play the audio and speak at the same time as the speaker so you can hear where your voice and the native speaker's voice is different. Tip number 5, expand your vocabulary with collocations. I mentioned patterns before. Well, there are also patterns in vocabulary. We like to always put some words together in a certain way, not because there's logic, but because that's what became commonly used as the language evolved over time. For example, in English, the words do and make are distinct, while in many other languages, a single word expresses both meanings. So it might be very useful for you to study collocations. Collocations are words that often go together, and they might not have a solid logic behind them. With do and make, for example, we say do the dishes and do homework, but make the bed and make a mistake. Collocations are patterns, and if you become familiar with the patterns, you will be able to start making guesses about what comes next. This relieves a lot of the mental burden of listening to another language. So if I say there are words that can come next and words that can't. And I know that because of collocations. I know bed can come next, make a bed, but homework can't because make a homework isn't a collocation. Learning collocations will help you better recognize patterns when someone is speaking quickly. Tip number 6, listen to a variety of accents. Even if your focus is American English, it's still useful to be at least familiar with different accents of English. Even if your focus is American English, do you know how many major regional accents there are in just America? 6 at least. Listening to a variety of accents will help train your ear to what sounds are possible in English. And if you practice familiarizing yourself with different accents, it won't be so surprising if you meet a person with a different accent in real life. Tip number 7, use dictation exercises. Dictation is the process of listening and then writing down what you hear. I know this sounds like an exercise you might do in school. In fact, I remember doing dictation exercises in my Chinese class in college. But remember what I said about how not every tip will work for you? Maybe dictation won't work for you, but it just might. I have students who do dictation exercises and they find it very useful. Doing dictation trains your ear. It's especially useful for the little words you might normally miss. I recommend finding a movie with reliable subtitles, listen to a sentence, write down what you heard, and then compare your writing with the subtitles. What words did you get right? What words did you miss? You don't have to do it for very long. It can be an exhausting exercise. So maybe try it for 10 minutes and then move on. It doesn't have to take an hour. Tip number 8, don't do too much too soon. On the note of exhaustion, if you want to try any of these tips, remember to start small. Start small and slowly increase over time. The reason I say this is because if you do a lot in the beginning, you can get quickly overwhelmed and then you might stop doing it at all. And that's not the goal here. The goal here is to create sustainable habits. Exercises you can incorporate into your English practice every day or every week. If you try any of these exercises, they should enhance your English practice, not destroy it. Tip number 9 is no surprise. Repetition is key. When it comes to understanding fast speech, repetition is gold. Listen to something once to figure out how much you understand. Copy what you hear. Listen again. The more you listen, the more familiar something becomes, the more comfortable you will become. Training your ear is just like training your mouth to speak. It's like a muscle, and muscles like repetition. When you listen to the same thing many times, you might start to think, this isn't as fast as I thought at first. Becoming familiar takes away the mystery, and that's what we want to do here. Demystify English. My final tip for you, tip number 10, practice every day. I know, another non-surprise, but I have to say it because it's super important. If your goal is to become fluent in English, please practice every day. Make English part of your life. If you have a goal to understand fast English, then practice a little bit every day. You might be surprised how quickly your ear will change. If you try any of these tips, please let me know how they work for you. As always, thanks for listening. Until next time, bye.